Good morning, and thank you for listening to WXOX 97.1 FM in Louisville, Kentucky. This is Artist Talk with LVA, and I'm the host, Keith Waits. The show is produced by Louisville Visual Arts, so we talk to artists. And the artist that's come to speak with me today, Autumn McKay Lindsey, is a ceramic artist whose newest exhibit, Return to the Beaten Path, is now on view at the Common Gallery at the 1512 Creative Compound. That's down in Portland on Portland Avenue. Right across the street, actually, from the LVA building. And Autumn is a native of Louisville, went to DuPont Manual, went to U of L. Now she's over at IUS in a post baccalaureate. And we'll talk a little bit about that. But Autumn, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I've seen your work, but let's over in this exhibit. But let's start with describe what's on the walls there, what people are going to see if and when they come. They're going to come.
So in the hallway where my work is displayed, on one side you have more like sculptural, like wall hanging stuff with drawings on the surface, and then on the opposing side is my most recent work, which is a series of plates that have imagery around my time growing up in Portland, because I did grow up and have a lot of memories there. So a lot of the images on those plates are tied to like certain memories that I have had. The work that's more sculptural across the way is going to be, those were kind of just like stepping stones. Kind of, I was figuring how to use my material, like my clay body and the terra sigillata, which is a fine slip. And then this last semester, I kind of started to lean more into like making pottery, and that's where that kind of kicked off. The pottery is going to be a lot more brighter than the sculptural work across the way. I started playing around with like leaving those stained slips kind of exposed and not covered with a glossy glaze. And I think that kind of just helps, I don't know, direct the viewer into the center of the plate where all of these like very detailed drawings are.
Right. You know, I would the more sculptural forms at a glance, and this is one of the beautiful things about clay, that you can kind of it can look like something else, right? You know, I remember when I was in school and I was working with clay, and I was really never a ceramic artist, but I remember all those lessons about how you could impose textures on it, and you could make it look like so many things. They look like they're metal. Was my eye was picking up. And I just had to, you know, I just sussed it out like, well, she's a ceramic artist, so they're probably ceramic, but that's what's cool about it. The plates, I was struck by two things. I'd seen some photographs of them, and then when I saw them in person, they were smaller, and they're hung, for me, they were hung at the perfect level that, you know, they were like kind of eye level for me. And I was just like, you know, and it's like it just pulls you in. I just felt like I could just feel myself physically, not even consciously deciding to do it, but just like moving in to look closely and see those sort of images, those drawings, including Portland and like Jane Brothers Hardware and places like that.
Yeah.
But was it intentional that you be that small? How aware of that are you in making them that they should be small or shouldn't be smaller? Talk about scales.
Yeah, so you know, the scale of the like pots and like the smaller plates, you know, those are kind of meant to intentionally be held, like hold little, like sharing little moments. Like that's what my pottery is mostly about. It's like meant to be touched and felt and looked at, and like question the story, you know, within. Like so it is intended to bring you into it. And getting very detailed like that, down to like the Jane's Brothers like Ace Hardware store is a really good example, because I did get really into the details of like the windows of like the wheelbarrows that they just have sitting up on the second floor that are usually outside. Yeah, does that answer your question? I hope.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, but
Okay.
have you ever thought about making them larger, or is that something you think you might move to, or
yeah, maybe. I think so. I've thought about it in the past. As of right now, I've just been kind of like leaning into making pottery. It looks like I mostly just make plates, but I actually do make like tumblers and like smaller little like bowls. And usually these plates are the exception, but I try to like put little pieces of clay, like textures that the viewer can like play with while they hold the cup and whatnot. So at the moment, no, it's not going any larger scale, but in the future, do I kind of hope to do more of like a installation work with like these bigger drawings with like smaller drawings within them. And Muzi's work is kind of like that. It's really, and that's why I'm really drawn to his work too. And like Swoon, if you're familiar with that artist, she's kind of like just printmaking and these large scale installations that are drawings within drawings. And that she's one of my big inspirations for like how I work with the drawings.
Well, and I don't mean to suggest for a minute that I think they should be larger. I just wonder, because I'm always curious, like the choices an artist make. Why that size as opposed to a little bit bigger or really big, or but I feel like, and I'm wondering if you're thinking about this, that there is there is some sort of tradition of ceramic plates on a small size, almost like the saucer for a cup, that sort of scale.
Mhm.
That I think that our collectors will get them and they'll have a wall full of them and they'll all be themed. And I'm always thinking of like kitschy kind of things like kitten plates or something, or floral plates,
Yeah.
It seemed like they were that size. So I could almost see like somebody like a collector not wanting to buy one, but let's say buy six and have them like a 3 and 3 on a wall space like that to really emphasize the set, to have a set of them like that. So I was very aware, even though the style of what you're doing is not at all like that kind of finished porcelain,
Mhm.
kind of look or whatever. There's a much more, I guess it's a little more rough or rustic sort of quality in comparison to that reference. And I don't mean to just be saying like, hey, collectors, come buy 6 of but I could really see them that way, like by themselves, one all alone
Mhm.
seems not the right way for them to exist.
Yeah. So in a past show, so I had another show this like earlier this semester with another studio mate of mine, and when I hung the plates on the wall in that show, I did hang them in clusters, and I think they are more successful that way because it's kind of like a story bouncing around all of the plates, I think given the space that I had and the amount of plates, it kind of just made more sense to do a line and kind of like a story like that you walk along than like the cluster, because it would have just been like a small portion of this big wall.
Let me ask you, so when did you think I'm an artist? When did you accept that as a part of your identity? If you went to DuPont Manual in the visual art program, I'm thinking maybe a fairly early age.
Yeah, I mean, I've wanted to be an artist since I was like a child. I was my sister did a lot of like drawing and painting, and she's about 18 years older than me. So I was around her a lot. And I was like just from maybe like kindergarten or first grade, I was like, I want to be an artist. And then I just followed this path. Like I got around, I was lucky enough to have some really good art teachers and like people in my community who like encouraged that like exploration.
Well, I always think older siblings, of course, are very important, right? It's like you,
Mhm.
yeah, and probably there's not as large a gap in the years as that, but it's like I had a 6 years older brother, and so I always felt like I knew the cooler music, like
Mhm.
you know, in a way, it's like it seems like a real gift for you to have had somebody who could be that kind of example for you, because it's not always easy to find examples for creativity when you're a kid.
Yeah, definitely not at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sister was like one of my first big like inspirations into like leaning into art. And then of course, like you get to school and you have like that middle school art teacher that inspires you and pushes you.
Yeah.
And then that's how I ended up at Manual. And that's just, I mean, what an opportunity that is. Like, just access to so many different mediums, and a very intense art development program.
Right. Well, so what was so you must have experienced different mediums all those years. What was your journey to clay? When did that kind of really land with you as maybe your favorite or best medium?
Well, when I was younger, like as a small child, I definitely loved clay so much, but I didn't have as much access to it until
Right.
high school. So it was like my sophomore year, I got to take my first clay class, our first sculpture class, which involves some ceramics. And I don't know, I just like fell in love. I love the way that clay feels. You can build so many, it's so versatile. You can do so much with it. You have the ability to like add or take away, or like you can get really big or intricate. I've seen ceramic artists make these like moving functional parts, like parts that function like bolts and screws, and it's just crazy. Like I love it for that reason. It's so many things you can do with it.
Well, not to mention that you were talking about how you make different kinds of things like mugs and vessels and things like that, that you can be a ceramic artist, but there's also a real functional opportunity to make things that you can sell and help make a living that are
Yeah.
still like cool and beautiful, not just like, but do you do a lot of functional pottery, or are you stick closer more to like the artistic ceramics?
Yeah, I would consider all of my all my pottery to be functional. Is that what you're asking, if I prefer my work to be used or not used, like in the view
Well,
of?
maybe because like those plates that we're talking about at the
Uh-huh.
gallery, like I can't, like my first thought is not to buy them and have them be like a bowl that I would eat out of. And I'm sure I could, but that's
Uh-huh.
how I would think about them. I would want to have them where people could see them. But do you ever do anything that is strictly more functional?
Yeah, that's what I intend with my work. I mean, if someone buys my work and wants to put it on a shelf or hang it on the wall to admire it, that's fine. But I personally, like when I purchase ceramics from artists, I want to use it. Like I want to touch it, I want to feel it, I want to see it, and that's what, that's kind of why I build my plates the way I do. Like I hand build all of my work, my cups and everything. Like touch and like feel and hold is really like important to me for experiencing the pot. So yeah, I would want them to be functional all the time.
Okay, I got you. It just seems like I say, and I think somebody has to see these plates that sort of understand exactly what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
I didn't think they were non-functional, like that you couldn't use them that way.
Yeah.
And they're plates, but they have a little the sides have a little lip to them.
Yeah.
So you could eat ice cream out of them or something, I guess, right?
Yeah, they're almost kind of, yeah, they do have they are kind of like these very shallow bowls, some of them, Um,
Like a little
yeah,
dessert, like a little dessert dish or something. And
yeah, exactly.
nuts,
And
you could have nuts in them.
I think that, yeah, while they're hanging on the wall, it does kind of like present them as like they're supposed to be like stay there and not leave the wall. Um, but I think it's kind of hard to like display plates in a way that they are like full. I don't know, that they're viewed the best way, because like I don't know if I'd want to put like my plates on a long pedestal, you know.
Yeah.
So
Well, because I think I, I would think that would tend to not be as functional for reading the drawing in the center, which they are. They're like I said before, they're just detailed enough that they pull you in.
mhm.
You want to read. It almost felt like the ring part, the sort of edging. It was almost like I could imagine it sort of like you would sort of move through it almost like a movie device, and then you'd go into a larger world of that drawing.
Yeah, I think, yeah. The contrast of like this, very bright, like sort of rough, like rain on the outside really does help kind of like direct you into the drawing too. So
Well, and I want to ask you about so you're at IUS now
mhm,
in your second year of a 2-year program there, and you're working with Brian Harper, who
mhm.
I think he was on the show a long time ago, and
Oh, nice.
really great guy, and several great people over there at IUS that are teachers. But um, so talk to me about this post baccalaureate program. I'm interested in what you're talking about and the way you described it to me before we started recording, because I think there's a lot of people who feel like getting involved with like they would love to just go take a class with Brian Harper or take a class with this instructor, and but they might be intimidated by signing on to a big degree, like a commitment for 4 years or whatever kind of thing.
Mhm.
Talk a little bit about what this program is, because I'm not as familiar with the dynamic.
Okay, so the post-bac program, it's essentially like it's a non-degree seeking program.
Mm.
So you have to have had your BFA or some kind of like undergraduate degree to like, it's like a continued education kind of program. So I knew personally that I did not want to go get my master's degree within the next few years or so. And then I saw a post for IUS was taken applications for the post-bac program. So you do have to apply. You do have to like submit a portfolio, artist statement, resume. Brian, and usually the resident artist he has, will reach out and you do an interview, and then there's like a selection. So it's not just like you just sign up and take a class, which, I mean, you can. They do have non-major ceramic courses there. But this is more directed for like maybe artists that are like really trying to like either decide like if they want to continue their career, maybe moving towards like residencies, or maybe they do want to like go get a master's degree. The point of this program is to kind of just like help you kind of direct, like decide on what you want to do. How can like he or like the class, the environment support you and make your concepts or your portfolio better for like the next step in your career.
And is there something like a thesis project or whatever you have to do?
No, not really. It's mostly like, it's required that you build a portfolio to take images of at the end of the semester. Usually there's like some assignments that are like, so this semester we had some smaller assignments that were focused on 3D printing. Brian has a lot of knowledge and experience with that. So he was kind of, gave us the challenge of 3D print tools that will help you in your process and making your work. And then we also had like we were all partnered off to have our own week-long shows at the Space Lab, which is a small gallery for the students at IUS that they kind of like sign out weekly for the semesters.
Is that the gallery space in the Ogle building, Ogle Center?
Yeah, so they have the big gallery that's like upstairs. I think it's called the Bar Gallery, forgive me. The larger one, which they have their annual student show up there right now, going on until mid-January, I believe. And then down below, there's just like a small, maybe like 10 by 8-foot room that students are allowed to put their own individual shows in if they want.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I just, I talked to, it seems in the last year or two particularly, I've talked to a lot of self-taught artists who may have a college degree in some wholly unrelated topic.
Mm-hmm.
One of the most interesting ones is I know somebody with a business accounting degree, and I was like, that is like the exact opposite of the way an artist's mind is supposed to work. But
yeah,
cool. So at least you know how to run your business. But it's sort of interesting. So that's why it's always interesting to talk about what is your journey. But they want to learn things, but they don't want to go get into another degree program. And so I think I'm always curious to know how people go about educating themselves or doing like, and you did a really good job of describing that program, which was kind of something I had no idea about. Mm-hmm. Just because it seems like, and I always feel like there's such an intense emphasis on degrees and mm-hmm. not as much on the experience, like you could spend years not get the degree, but you had a great 4 years learning, so I appreciate that. That's very interesting, and more people should maybe kind of look into that.
Yeah, and there are post-bac programs across the country. Like one of my studio mates was a post-bac at Western Virginia University for a year before they came here to IUS. And I believe U of L has a post-bac program for their ceramics department as well. Something to look into.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So when you're done with this program, that's going to be in the spring, you'll be finished?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do then? Are you just going to have you thought about that? Are you going to stick around Louisville? Are you going to set up a studio shop, or what are you thinking about?
Wow. Well, yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I am going to start applying for residencies in January and February, particularly ones that are like 6 months to 2 years, longer term things outside of the city and outside of the country. I have traveled before to do like residencies outside of the country or like ceramic related things. So I'm looking at like Chicago has a really great residency called Little Street Gallery that I'd love to go to. Baltimore, a couple places on the West Coast. As far as like out of the country, probably go back to the France. Air Valoris has like a really nice residency program down in the south of France. And then there's also a residency in Denmark that I've been like considering. So Yeah, that's pretty much the game plan. Just work a bunch at the bar and make work and try to apply and move up somewhere.
Well, which seems like a logical sort of next step in growth and education.
Yeah, I think so for me. I mean, I love Louisville and everything, but I'm not necessarily one who once or is really ready to set up just like my own studio. I still feel very pulled to go travel and explore like different, you know, different people with different approaches to ceramics.
Right.
Um, and
Which,
sometimes, go ahead.
well, I was going to say, because yes, I mean, ceramics is very different in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. Well, that's about all the time we have for today, Autumn, but thank you so much for taking the time. Again, Autumn Lindsey is a ceramic artist. Her new exhibit, Return to the Beaten Path, is up now at the Common Gallery at the 1512 Creative Compound. That's on Portland Avenue. And that runs through what? Does it run into January, right?
Yes, I believe it is January 14th is
Right.
the last day.
Because nobody wants to be switching out exhibits over the holidays.
No, not at all. And not
But
right in the beginning of the new year, no.
right. But check the hours. I always want to recommend, like when you get into the holidays and you got family in town and the day after you work yourself on your meal, like what are you going to do? And I always think like, hey man, check out some galleries.
That
What
is amazing.
you know what to do with the family? Go look at art. That's always a good idea.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Keith. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to be here and sharing my my voice and experience.
Oh, it was a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you.